Well, good evening, everybody. Or if you're coming in from somewhere else, maybe over in the US, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. For those that don't know me, my name's John Tracy, and for the next 50 minutes to an hour, I've got some pretty cool stuff to share with you all. Now, for those of you that were here last month, we are going to do the live drawing of who is going to win the Ecoflow Powerstream inverter. Not this one, this is my spare, but we have a fully boxed, unopened version sitting here, and somebody is going to be taking that later on this evening. So stick around, we will do a live drawing probably within the next sort of half an hour or so. But while everyone gets settled in, as always, we're going to follow exactly the same formats that we do every single time. So I'm going to start off with some of the questions that I've been asked. Some people submit questions in advance, but if you have questions, by all means, throw them in the chat, and I will get to them as soon as I possibly can. So, without further ado, let's dig in and see what we've got today. So, question one, have you heard about the government wanting to reduce FIT payments? Well, yes, I have. And I honestly think the government didn't want us to know about this consultation that was going on. So, what am I talking about? First of all, FIT payments, for those that are kind of new to solar, was something that the government introduced back in 2010. For people that were investing in solar, they were guaranteeing payments for the amount of energy you generated. And it was a way of offsetting some of the initial very high costs of solar equipment back in 2010. And they phased that out, I believe, 2017, 2018. So it's not a scheme that anyone can join today. But those that are on the FIT scheme, certainly myself included, we had a contract. I have a contract for 25 years. So even in today, I still have another 10 years to run on that contract. So I get paid for a proportion of my generation. And you would normally get paid a small amount for export as well. But in my case, I've opted out of that and just gone to a standard export contract. So what's happening, and why are people getting upset about this? Well, at the end of last month, the government put out this consultation proposal, and basically, I'll put links in the description afterwards if anybody wants to read this. I'll probably put out a separate video on it in more detail because those that are on the feed-in tariffs really do need to know about this. But basically, what the government's saying is it's costing us too much, and we're spending way too much money. Now, what they've done is they've put out this consultation, and they've asked people to comment on one of two options. And quite frankly, neither of the options are really acceptable. What they're saying is the way the feed-in tariff works is, like I say, you get paid a set number of pence per kilowatt hour that you generate from your FIT system. So if, like me, you've expanded that system, you only get paid on the proportion of the original FIT system. And that payment was linked, it was index linked. So every year it goes up. And to be totally honest, it's a gold mine. We get paid about 70 pence. I think it's even more than that now, maybe about 72 pence per kilowatt hour that we generate from that, in my case, my original 2 kilowatt FIT system. And that's linked to the retail price index. So if the retail price index is high, then that number goes up even more every single year throughout the course of the contract. So what the government are proposing is that they change the CPI, the RPI to the CPI. So the consumer price index, a similar kind of thing, but it's a lower amount. So the amount it would go up year on year would actually be reduced. They're not talking about reducing the amount you get paid per kilowatt hour. That is what it is today, but it just wouldn't rise as quickly using RPI if they switch to CPI instead. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this is probably a small amount of money. It means that you would probably go up, a couple of percent less than it would be right now. But every single person that has a FIT contract has a contract. You entered into a contract with the government under a set of conditions, and now they're proposing to change them. So they're saying the two options that they'd like people to give their feedback on are, one is to switch immediately to CPI rather than RPI, or the second one is to freeze the CPI raises until such time as the RPI catches up, which they think will happen in around about 2030. So really this is just a short-term thing. It's only really a 3 to 4 year freeze that they're proposing. Now, like I say, people entered into these contracts based on the terms and conditions that were agreed at the time. And now the government is saying, we want to change those terms and those conditions. And they're asking you to vote on which of the two bad options would you like? And the answer is neither, thank you. I would like you to honour the contract that we already have, and I would like you to continue that. Now, that doesn't seem to be an option, but there is an option. It says if you have any other bright ideas, then please do get in touch. This consultation is due to run until the middle of December. So for anyone that wants to give feedback, as I say, I will put links in the description of this video after the fact. It's one of those things I can't do before on a live stream, but if not, just search for consultation fit off gem. You'll find it. It's not hard. It looks something like that. So yeah, lots of people very, very angry about this. But more importantly, the anger seems to be coming from the fact you would think they have a defined list. They know every single person that is on a FIT tariff. And so far, we haven't found one single person on a FIT tariff who's actually been contacted about this. So they're asking for input from all of the people except for the people this is actually going to affect. So if you are on a FIT tariff, I'd highly recommend finding those documents and getting your responses in, letting them know how you feel. Okay. Rant over on that one. So the second question that came up, and this is actually something that's I've sort of had a bit of a rethink on this because I've actually done this. Is it worth upgrading old solar panels and putting new panels in place? So as I said, we've had solar on our house since 2010. When we did it in 2010, we put a 2 kilowatt array and an old 2 kilowatt Fronius inverter in the attic. There were no batteries at the time, but it was under that nice generous feed-in tariff. And it sat up there for the best part of 15 years. Oh, sorry, that's the last one. Here we go. So yeah, so our old system was 10 times 210 watt panels. And a few years ago, we replaced them with 10 440 watt panels. So you would think, okay, that sounds right. In the same roof space, we're basically getting actually more than double the output of the panels. So we went from a 2 kilowatt array to a 4 and a bit kilowatt array. And because of technology marching on, the actual efficiency of the panels themselves, they were about 3% more efficient according to the spec sheets. So in theory, makes complete sense. And given the cost of modern panels, I mean, when we bought those Sanyo panels, I believe they were about £200 per panel. And nowadays you can get big 440 watt panels for sort of £50 a panel. So the cost of the panels has come down, the efficiency's gone up, the amount you can get into the same space has pretty much doubled. So yeah, it sounds like it's a great thing. If you've got old panels, you might want to certainly look at it. But there are some other things to consider. Obviously, if you're on a high roof, you've got to think through the scaffolding costs. Now, I didn't realize scaffolding was that expensive to hire. When we had some work done recently, we needed to put a scaffolding ring on our house. The scaffolding rental alone was nearly £1,000, which is insane when you think about it. It's a few metal poles and a few planks of wood, but scaffolding is expensive. So you've got to factor in the cost of rental of scaffolding. Obviously, if it's on a flat roof or a low accessible roof, then you don't have to worry about that. At the same time as we changed the panels, we also had to change the rails. Actual proper solar rails really didn't exist in 2010. And we had Unistrut on our roof and everything was bolted to the Unistrut. Unistrut is very heavy compared to modern solar rails, but it means that for your new panels, you're probably going to need new rails. You're going to need new bird protection. If you're pulling off the old panels, you're probably going to destroy the old bird protection taking it off. So you're going to need that there as well. At the same time, we also went from a Fronius inverter, which was just a very old, dumb string inverter, to a solar edge system. and solar array systems need optimizers. So we needed a complete rewire from the roof down to the inverter. So there were lots of costs involved. So it sounds simple, we'll just change the panels out, we'll put bigger panels on the roof. It actually became a pretty major project. And at some point we crossed over the line where we said, look, we're just going to replace everything, because at the same time we wanted to upgrade our inverter size. So we ended up going from a 3.6 kilowatt inverter to a 10 kilowatt inverter. So again, this what started out as a small, it shouldn't be that expensive type idea, suddenly became quite a significant project. So yes, it is worth doing, but just be aware of all the different costs that go into this. It is just it's one of those things that can snowball quite quickly. Okay, so I haven't spelled upcoming right on that slide, have I? So what have we got upcoming? Well, so winter for me is a bit of an odd one, because I don't like being out in the cold. There's not a lot to do from a solar perspective in the winter. The heat pump just does its thing, and yeah, so I generally take the winter and I set myself a number of projects of things that I need to either do during the winter or get ready for when the good weather comes. So some of these will turn into videos, some of them probably won't, and some of them are not really probably what you guys look for in when you come to watch any of my videos. So one of the things I'm going to be doing over the next month is teaching myself to code for microcontrollers. So I'm a bad programmer. I can code and code in multiple languages. None of it is any good, but it's functional and it generally works. The one thing I've never done is learn how to build code that runs a microcontroller that actually does things in the real world. So I'm going to teach myself how to interface what I already know to Arduino, I believe is the board that I was looking at the other day, and then things in the real world, motors and servos and all those kind of things. And we'll see where it goes, but it's my little winter project to see what I can build. And my long-term plan with this is, for those of you that know, about 2 years ago now, I bought a single axis articulator for one of my solar panels, and it was rubbish. It failed more. I spent more time trying to convince it to work than it actually spent working. It then eventually died, and I didn't even bother trying to claim under the warranty for it. It was just too much hassle. But with the new panels, what I actually want to be able to do is just move them out about 5 degrees. So I'm looking at, can I build a little thing that at the right time articulates the panels out, and then if the wind picks up or anything like that, it articulates them back in again. So that's the reason behind it. There may be some interesting learnings off that. If anybody knows of any good reference sites, places to go for this kind of thing, then please do let me know, because this is what I'm going to be doing over the winter. The next project is something that I probably will be making a few videos on. So my wife has a horse. I refer to it as an oil pump running in reverse, an oil well running in reverse. So if you think about what an oil well does, it takes oil out of the ground and it turns it into money for people. Well, a horse does exactly the opposite. You pour money into it and it then puts it all in the ground in the form of horse shit. So she stables her horse about 1.5 miles away from here. There is water on site, but no electricity. So perfect opportunity to get some solar down into the fields, to get some lighting into the stables, to give them some power where they're completely off grid. So yeah, we're going to be doing some projects around that. Haven't quite figured out all the details yet, but expect more on that probably after Christmas. Then a little pet project that has been on my sort of list to do, but I'm finally going to get round to doing it, is, so we have our solar edge system. We have 2 Ecoflow systems. We have a completely separate system for gathering data from the heat pump. We have a completely separate system for gathering data from our electric cars. There's just too many apps and there's lots of data, and I want it all in one place. So I'm going to be building myself a little database with a web front end where I can have all of this data arrive, so that when it comes to producing charts and everything for videos, I can literally just run a query and it will be able to query all the different data sources. Again, not my area of expertise. I generally stayed away from databases as much as I possibly could, but ideal winter project when it's cold. I can either sit in front of the TV and ask myself, why are you watching Strictly Come Dancing just because everybody else is? And or I can just sit there with my laptop and write bad code. And then the last thing I'm going to look at, and this is really for next summer, is a phase 3 to the fence mounting panels. And this is something I've always thought of, where the panels hang on my fences as a kind of stopgap solution. Obviously, the best solution is to fit them in as panels, so they're integrated into the panel. Now, I've seen two solutions for this. One is like a wooden fence panel, standard, I think it's 5 foot wide by 6 foot tall, that fit into, I have concrete posts, it would just drop straight into the slots, but they are crazy expensive and they want you to use custom fence posts for all the cabling. The other one I've seen are custom made panels that are made in exactly the right sizes to slot in. Unfortunately, they're a German company and they don't ship anywhere else but Germany. But one of the things I looked at as a stopgap solution is these flexible panels that the kind of ones you see on top of like a caravan roof or an RV or a motorhome type roof, where it follows the contours of the roof. They're generally flexible. Sometimes they're glued on, but I actually wanted to start looking at those and figuring out how do I integrate those into a fence panel. Again, I am DIY challenged. I was off school sick when they gave out DIY skills, but I can figure it out. So I'm going to look at integrating them into a standard fence panel, see if it is a bit lighter on the fence, see if I can get the same kind of performance that I'm getting out of standard panels. And then it occurred to me, I also have a vertical south-facing wall just above the heat pump where I could put some very lightweight panels on that wall as well. So, and then that might mean more batteries, but we all know I'm on a battery ban from the wife at the moment, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, so if you guys have other questions, pop them all in the into the chat. I will come back to them in a few moments, but let's have a look and see how the Net Zero Challenge is going. So if you're new to the channel, my Net Zero Challenge was my 2025 challenge was I wanted to have a £0 energy bill in 2025. So every single month I take, what did I get for export? What did I get for import? We work it all out. And my plan is, if I have any money over at the end of the month, so if Octopus owe me some money at the end of the year, we will add that to the charity pot, which we'll come on to in a minute, as to money we're raising for good causes. So for those that don't know my system, so I have about 9.6 kilowatts of panels on the roof. This is really as much as I can possibly get on there. So I have 3 different roof aspects. So I have a south by southwest facing roof with 10 panels on it. I have a south by southeast facing garage roof with 4 on, and I have 8 on my north by northeast facing roof on the front of the house. They all plumb into my solar edge system, which has 29.1 kilowatts of batteries. I actually saw somebody with a new, is it Sig Energy or Sage Energy? I'm never sure how you pronounce it. Sig Energy battery stack the other day. So he has a very similar capacity. I think he has about 29.3 or 29.4. And they literally take up about 1/3 of the space. Maybe, let's be generous, but let's say half as much space. Now, these batteries are only 4 years old. So in 4 years, the capacity stayed the same, but the size of the batteries has come down massively. So no plans to change those. Those things are they're just rock solid. They just do what they need to do. I never have to worry about them. We also have 11 kilowatts, 11 kilowatt hours of Ecoflow batteries split across a couple of, so we have a Delta Pro and a Delta Pro expansion battery. We have the Stream Ultra and the AC Pro, and I snuck another 2 kilowatt battery order in the other day. So there's another an AC Stream AC battery coming at some point. Ecoflow haven't shipped it yet. So those are all connected to my fence panel systems. So yeah, we've got about 2,700 watts on the fences. I'm not sure, again, if the wife's going to let me put any more on the fences. So we'll see what we can do next summer with those. But what we've seen this year from that system has been phenomenal. So this is just a view back to 2024. That whole system, we had slightly less fence mounted panels then, but not meaningful amounts. So we generate 5.4 megawatts in 2024. We're at 8.28 so far this year. And what is it, middle of November now? So we won't get much more than that. I very much doubt we'll make it to 8.5. But yeah, this has just been an amazing year. Every single month, with the exception of last month, just knocked the other months out of the park from the previous year. So again, hopefully this is an indication of things to come, and we'll have another great year next year. So how can you guys participate? Well, as I say every month, you're already doing it. Just the fact that you watch the videos on the channel, you turn up to these live streams, all of that ad revenue is going into our pot. So last month we added another £544.16. We added another £200 from people who used my referral codes to get heat pumps. So again, thank you to those. Octopus, I believe they've been caught by the data protection people, because I used to get an email saying, hey, your friend, insert name of person that used the code. I don't get any of that anymore. All I get is somebody has used your referral code. So I think there's some data protection issue that they've been pulled up on. But whoever you are that's using those referral codes, thank you very much. That all goes into the pot. So I say we had about £200 of referrals. Well, the buy me a coffee, that was for people that entered the raffle. So there's £168 from that, plus £544.16 from YouTube, which brings us to a grand total for, it says September, it actually should say October, of £912.16. So as I've said before, I'm covering all of the tax on this, so that it all goes to good causes. So yeah, thank you to everybody. Thank you to everybody who turns up, watches the videos, clicks the like button, writes comments, everything you do, because it is making a difference. You can continue to contribute. Again, if you want to switch to Octopus, there's a code there. If you want to buy me a coffee, you can do that as well. All sorts of referral codes, all under that QR code. I'll take you to just one page that has everything on it. So for those that have been around the channel for a while, so my plan was to try and give this money away to people who had energy debt. And you might have seen a video that I put out last week about what the government's going to do about energy debt. I'm quite frankly, I think my way is better, but they don't listen to me. But anyway, I found it really difficult to do, because generally the people that needed the help the most were those that were on benefits, and by giving them money means that the government says, well, we don't need to give you as much money in benefits. So some of you suggested, well, maybe what we should do is use the money to buy insulation for people's houses. And if we buy the insulation and give it to them as insulation rather than money, then it won't be counted against benefits. So that's exactly what I did. So I actually got in touch with our local, they call it a day centre. Lots of villages in East Anglia have small areas for old age pensioners, sort of supervised housing. So they can still live independently in their own house, but there's like a warden or somebody there. Those places generally are quite old, and they need council money or charities to help sort of keep them updated. So I got in touch with a local day centre. They put me in touch with some people that needed extra insulation. So I thought, here's an easy problem to do, but who's going to fit it? Well, I actually got in touch with a local handyman, and since I wrote this slide, I've actually got in touch with two more who said they'd be willing to do one day at the weekend each, fitting insulation for people that need it. So the problem we ran into, and again, getting into trouble with my wife here, is I went and ordered a whole load of insulation from B&Q without actually taking into account quite how big insulation is, and I would need somewhere to store it. So we ended up for a couple of days with full house full of insulation, and I'm under strict instructions to be told that that won't happen again. So what I'm actually doing is every Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to B&Q, I'm filling up as much as I can in the cars, and I'm taking it straight round to these handymen who are going straight away and installing it, so that it's not sitting in my conservatory and in my office and the downstairs toilet and everywhere else that we were storing it. It does seem to be working. I just don't know how quickly we can get stuff out this way. So I might have to look at the process. But This is where we are currently today. So you can see all of your donations. That's all the money from YouTube and affiliates and all that kind of links. We've raised over £7,000 between us. We've only spent about £2,000 or just shy of £2,000 of that. That is going to change over the next couple of months, because certainly as I can find more and more handymen that can get this stuff into people's houses, we're going to try and do more of this. I'm talking to one of the local food banks about just putting out some feelers to try and find out if there are people who could benefit from this. And again, if we can come in on a Saturday morning, somebody who knows what they're doing turns up, rolls this stuff out in your attic, sets it all up for you, it should cut down people's energy bills massively in the winter. So yeah, more to come on that. But again, thank you to everybody who's contributed in any way, shape or form over the course of this year. We're doing some good work. Okay, so let's go back to the challenge and let's see how much power did we use. Well, obviously it's starting to get cold. We get days where it's a little bit warmer, days it's a little bit cold. But in October, we used £106.87 worth of electricity. Now, for those that, again, have not been here very long, we charge our batteries every single night. So our average cost for energy is about 7.8 pence per kilowatt hour. So we charge on Octopus Intelligent Go at 7p. We sometimes bring in tiny little bits of energy, but it averages out at about 7.8 pence per kilowatt hour. So that was about 1.18 megawatt hours, which is a lot of electricity. But like as I've always said, we don't live like hermits. Don't walk around wearing hemp clothing and keeping the house like a fridge. We heat our home to a very nice, comfortable level. We run a couple of electric cars. I work from home. My wife works from home. So yeah, there's always power being used in this house. But although we brought in £106 worth of energy, which was about 13% more than we did in September, and you'll see the reasons why it's gone up 13%. We actually were able to export £40 worth of electricity, so about 271 kilowatt hours. This is yeah, you can see, just take a look at one of those graphs. You can see how bad October's been. I said we had a great year. Every year exceeded the previous month, with the exception of October. Just look in the middle there. There were days where we exported nothing. And that's because we needed all the power that was in our batteries to run the house. So although we were able to export a small amount, it was about 60% less than we did in September. We don't have any gas anymore, so no bills for that. So basically it worked out, we imported £106 worth, we exported £40.74. We did get, and actually if I go back to those, go back a couple of charts, those at the beginning of the month, you can see those two big spikes on the left there that show us premium rate electricity. So that was Octopus's, when they were giving away free power those days. So we sucked in a whole load of power into the batteries in the middle of the day. That's why it shows up as premium rate there, but obviously they refunded that. So we got £7.52 back for those free electricity days, which gave us a total bill for the month of £58.61. So yeah, I like to look at this chart every single month. This is this month compared, or October compared to the month before, so September. Days that are positive versus days that were negative. And as we get towards the winter, we're starting to see there are days, more positive days in the month. Positive meaning days we pay the energy company versus days that they pay us. So again, we only had 5 days of the month where we had negative electricity bills. The rest of them were days that we were paying them. Couple of reasons why. You can see that, as I said at the beginning of the month, those were the free energy sessions, those 2 days. And then the box you can see at the back end of the month, that was when we turned the heating on. Because like I said, we don't live like hermits. So yeah, the heat pumps started to come on. It didn't use a huge amount of electricity. I think we use about 35 to 40 kilowatt hours for about half of the month. So again, most of the time our heat pump in the evening is set to about 20.5 degrees, 20, usually we got about 21 in the winter. The house sits at about a constant 19.5, 20 degrees. So it's kind of only just on and off. As we get into December, I expect to see that start to rise. And then January is really where we kind of use it in anger. So far this month, so far this year. So again, you can see we started off in January and February with paying the energy company, and then all the way from March through to September, they paid us every single month. So we're back to paying the energy company, but we're still at minus £240.84 for the year. So if I divide that by 2, that means as long as I don't spend more than £120 in November and £120 in December, we're going to end up with a negative electricity bill for the year. And given we only spent £105 in January, and January was bitterly cold here. I mean, there were actual daytime temperatures of minus 5 degrees. The coldest, I've lived here for 27 years. I think that's the coldest I remember, or certainly I felt it more. Maybe it's just I'm getting old. But yeah, so I'm pretty confident that we will have a negative electricity bill for this year. Okay, let's give away the Ecoflow Powerstream. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, so last month, as I said, I've got I don't know how I ended up with 3. I honestly don't, but I have a fully unboxed, there you go, you can see the original seal on the top there, unboxed Ecoflow Powerstream. I really do think these are a great product. It's a shame Ecoflow don't make them anymore. Hence the reason I have a spare, because I read so many things online of people saying, mine just packed up. Mine's been running solidly for 3 years and has never shown any indications of having a problem. But they were £99 on eBay, so I bought a spare, and then I ended up with a third. Don't know. It's sat in a box. I've never taken it out. So one of you is going to get this, and I'm going to ship it to you in the next couple of days. So how are we going to do this? Well, what I did was, for everybody who paid their £3 entrance fee by buying me a coffee last month, is I exported that full list from the Buy a Coffee website, and I then loaded it into ChatGPT, which you can see here. Now, what I did, now I'm going to apologies. Now I'm just going to be a bit of a geek for a moment. Is random numbers, when it comes to computers, aren't as random as you would think they are. And so I did a couple of tests. I loaded it in and said, ChatGPT, please pick a person randomly from this list, and it picked a person. And then I said, do it again. In fact, I might actually have it in the history here. No, I won't do that, because it might show up somebody's email address, which I don't want to do. So anyway, I asked it to pick a random person. I said, that's great. Run the whole thing again. Gave me the same person. So I got it to explain how it was building its random numbers. Generally, most simple random numbers from a computer aren't a random number. They're just a table full of random numbers, and generally the computer will pick somewhere to start and then pick a random number from it. So I actually wanted it to come up with a real random number generator. So what you can see on the screen here, this section here, this is actually the code that it's going to use to pick the winner. Now, I know I'm grossly overcomplicating this, but basically it's using a cryptographically secure random number generator. So rather than just pick a number of a table, I say I'm going to go to it now. So what I'm going to do is let's go into the thing at the bottom and say, please give me a winner, not a winter, from this list using the code above, and show me their name. Do not show their email address. Now I'm just putting that in specifically because in the CSV file it has people's email addresses, and I don't want somebody's email address popping up on the screen. So with that, let's see what it comes back with. Robert Hamling from line 40 of the CSV file. So Robert, congratulations. The Powerstream is yours. If you're not on this call, you will still win it. What I will do is I will send Robert a note via the My Coffee app, and if his email's in there, I will also email him and let him know. But Robert, congratulations. Thank you for for participating, everybody. I really do appreciate it. What I'm actually going to do is use this as an example, and I'm actually going to go out to a number of different vendors who have wanted to sponsor the channel, but I've never really had a way of them doing it, and ask if they want to sponsor some things that I can give away to you guys. So stay tuned for that. Okay, congratulations, Robert. Let me jump back here and just wrap this up. We can get to some questions. So that's all my updates. Again, I'll be back in early December. We'll wrap up the year. Sorry, we'll do one more, then we'll wrap up the whole year together at the beginning of January, and see how we go. So what I'm going to do now is jump across back to your Q&A. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Paraglider Paul. I could tell you a funny story about when I learnt to paraglide when I was in the army. I'm so blessed that many of the stupid things that I did when I was young were in the days before social media. Let's just say somebody would have had a video of me clarried from head to foot in Bavarian cow poop, where I came down on a paraglider, went under a fence, and ended up in just the biggest pile of poop you've ever seen, head to foot. Anyway, paraglider Paul. You're ready about the £4 million debt that's been passed on. Do you know if my... So yes. So for those of you that, if you haven't seen it, I put out a video back end of last week. So there was a disturbing press release put out on the Ofgem website saying that they were going to basically allow energy companies to write off or basically get paid for all of the debt that customers had accumulated since, I believe, 2022 was the introduction of this. So basically any customer of theirs that was in debt, they would get paid for that. And the way it was going to be paid is everybody else would get money added to their bills. If you haven't seen it, just go back a couple of videos on the channel. Quite frankly, it's outrageous. We have no say in this, and they can just heap their debts onto us. If an energy company has people who owe them money, then that's their problem. It's not yours and mine, but we don't have any say in this. Ofgem have said that they're going to add £56 to our bills next year, and we're going to pay for it. So do you know if Martin Lewis has mentioned anything regarding this? I haven't seen anything. I follow Martin online. I have been in touch with somebody from his team who said that they will look into it and come back to me, but that was only Friday. So I haven't heard anything yet, but yeah, I am continuing to make as much noise as I can. I did raise a formal letter. It's the first letter I've written in decades. I sent a letter to my MP. I sent a letter to Ed Miliband. I also sent a letter to the Director General of Ofgem, asking for a response on this, and saying that in almost every, in fact, I don't believe there was a single person that commented on that video that was happy about it. And that was an understatement, because there were some people who were absolutely furious about it. But I don't think there's anybody who thought this was a good idea. There are MPs in the parliamentary committees who don't think this is a good idea. So I'm hoping that they're going to actually have a bit of a rethink about it. But yeah, I will keep chasing these people to see if there's something we can do about it. Okay. I think I would think going assistant. So actually, yeah, so this is the part of the sort of thing for one of the reasons for learning microcontrollers. So the Arduino is apparently the best one to learn on. Then you can get into things like ESP32s. ESP32s can be plugged into the heat pump. So there's kind of a method to my madness of wanting to learn all this. But yeah, I'm going to be spending quite a bit of time on these cold, rainy winter evenings playing. Much to my wife's chagrin, should we say? What are you doing now? Why are you wasting your time on this stuff? Yeah. So Bill, obviously going back to the Ofgem situation.
Um, I don't. The only other time I can think of that this kind of thing has been done was when I say we bailed out the banks, um, when the government basically gave the banks billions of pounds because they'd screwed up, and this is in the similar vein. We're not getting any say in it. We're just being told you're going to foot the bill. Um, it just doesn't seem right. Um, so again, if you're a British Gas customer, you're probably going to be footing the bill a bit more, because I don't know if you saw yesterday, but the supplier of last resort was announced for all Tomato Energy customers. So if you are still on Tomato Energy after they went into administration, you're now a British Gas customer. And again, all the costs involved in that will get heaped on to standing charges, because our energy minister doesn't seem to be able to stop these small energy companies from just saying, hey, there's no risks, we'll get involved in the energy market. And it seems they're right. There are no risks. They just make money, or we pay for it. Okay. Powerwall problem solved thanks to this. Oh, that's brilliant. So Dave, last month when we were on, was saying he was having some problems with his Powerwall. Now Powerwall unavailable. Yeah. So I actually heard of another person that had this problem. Their Powerwall was flicking on and off, so basically just going off randomly, coming back on. His problem turned out to be nothing to do with the Powerwall, but actually to do with the local grid voltage. So grid voltage fluctuates a lot where he lives, and once it goes below a certain level, the Powerwall was sensing that the grid had gone away, even though he was getting, I think he said about 219 volts. But the Powerwall was saying, that's out of range. The grid's gone. Therefore, go into isolation mode. But again, his was solved. The DNO did something at the local transformer, which seemed to resolve the issue for him. So glad you got yours sorted out. It sounds like it's probably an easier fix than getting the DNO to do anything. Are EV drivers worried about paying per mile, possibly after the budget? I think this is a red herring. So let me explain why. So this has come up in the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure if you read any of the sort of UK papers, there's a version of it in all of them. Doesn't matter whether it's the Guardian, the Telegraph, the Mail, whatever. There's this. They're worried that the Chancellor is going to announce this tax on EVs, pay per mile, and they've even come up with a figure. They're saying it's going to be 3p per mile. Given none of this has been released by the government or anything like that, I don't know where this information has come from. But here's why I think it's a red herring. How are they going to measure it? So there's a couple of ways you could do it. You could put a black box in everybody's car, and it could transmit data. Think of it like a smart meter in your car. It could transmit your mileage, and you pay per mile, however that works. Yeah, you've seen how government IT projects work. They'd have had to been working on this for years if they were planning to implement this in this budget. There's no indication that there's anything like that. So the only other option is either self-reporting, so where you have to say, I did this many miles, please charge me 3p per mile. And again, would require a mechanism for this to happen, whether it's a website or something like that. And then there would need to be the checks around it. So how do you prove? I drive 10,000 miles. I tell them I drive 1,000 miles. How do they know the number I've given them is right if it's self-reporting? So again, I think there's people haven't really thought through what this would be involved. Now, one way you could do this is you could say your mileage gets recorded at your MOT. So for the first 3 years of a brand new car, you don't have to have an MOT. Therefore, there'll be no reporting in the first 3 years. Maybe for the first 3 years of having a car, you don't have to pay per mile. But then every year when you get that, but that would put a big burden on people to have to save up the money to pay later on. And that's generally not how tax systems in the UK work. They want the money straight away if they can possibly get it. So I just think there's too many hurdles to make this something that they could launch
this year. Now, they might announce it and say, in 2030, we're going to move to a plan for this, but it just seems like way too much complexity for them to launch with, what is effectively 3 weeks notice before the budget. So I'm not convinced it's going to get announced. If I am wrong, when we do this again in December, I will eat humble pie. Actually, might even go and get a pie and eat the pie. But yeah, I just don't think that what they would need to have in place for this to work is anywhere close to being ready. Here we go, Steve Ultra. One of the things that don't get me wrong, I think it's a phenomenal system. And again, Ecoflow did send me one at no cost, and I did install it. I agreed I would make some videos around it, but I did say to them, I'm not gonna run these videos by you. I'm gonna publish them. I'm gonna put my thoughts on it. I think the hardware is great. I think the software is getting better. But the one thing that I really don't like is this premium feature. Is you buy hardware from them and then they go, oh, you want this feature? That's going to be £10 a month or whatever it is. It's not £10. I think it's about £3 a month. But every company is trying to do that. They're trying to build a revenue stream from their hardware. And there was one feature that I looked at in the last video that I've actually since got more clarity on, which has made me even more annoyed about it. So there's a feature in the app. Let me just pull it up so I can get the right name of the feature here. Come on, Ecoflow. Here we go. And so in the app, there's no point me holding it, but there's an option. I'll get my fingers out of the way. There's a tiny little gold crown next to it, and it's called Surplus Solar Control. Now, surplus solar control to me means when I have surplus from the solar, what do I do with it? That's actually not what it is. There's a different feature for that. It's the energy delivery strategy is the one you want for that. So when I have excess solar, do I put it in the batteries? Do I send it to the grid? What do I do with it? What this surplus solar control is the ability that if you've bought a stream system from Ecoflow and you've then decided maybe I've already got another Ecoflow power station. In this case, it only supports the Delta 2 right now. So if you've got a Delta 2, Delta 2s were never really designed to be integrated into the grid, into the house. They're a standalone power station. There are ways to do it with smart control panels and things like that. But this feature is specifically designed to allow, let's say your stream system is exporting 400 watts, to send a signal to the Delta 2 to say, turn on your import, set it to 400 watts. So you basically have the two systems and you need the Ecoflow smart meter in the middle to communicate. So you're having to pay a premium monthly fee because you've invested in two Ecoflow systems to have them talk to each other. I think that's outrageous. If anything, that should be a free feature because that customer has already spent even more money with you and you shouldn't be charging them for those kind of features. But yeah, like I say, they don't listen to me. But yeah, I'm sure, Steve, you'll be real happy with it. It's a great system. The one thing I love about it, mine sits literally the other side of that wall. My desk's just around there. Some of you have seen it on the video. It just sits under the workbench. And it is pretty much silent. It's exporting, I think, about 600 watts right now. Let's have a quick look. Oh, wakey. Oh, sorry, it doesn't come on till 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, it'll start spitting out 600 watts. I was thinking something's wrong with it. So it'll take over the base load, push out 600 watts, but it's quiet. There's no fans. It's got nice big heat sinks on the back. It can just fit into your house. Whereas my Delta Pro, now the Delta Pro is a few years old now. When its inverter starts up, it sounds like you've got a Harrier jump jet warming up in your office or in your house. So yeah, I'm sure you'll get on absolutely phenomenally with the stream system. Etched pixels. I love the avatar there. There needs to be a you can never have enough batteries. Yeah, I quite like being married to my wife, and the one thing I've learned, I've been married for 30 something years. The one thing I like about being married to my wife is I learned a long time ago, don't poke the bear. And walking around the house with a t-shirt like that on the back, on my back, is a great way to get me into a lot of trouble. Swing batteries now. Yeah. So the Ultra X that we just talked about. So there's the Stream Ultra, and then there's the Ultra X, which is basically the double width version, which is basically what I have around there with the separate battery, two of them combined into one unit. The one thing that I would say with the separate batteries, so there's Ecoflow love to make things confusing. So there's the stream system. So there's the stream inverter. So you can just buy the AC inverter on its own. Then there's the Stream Ultra Pro Max. Yeah, Ultra Pro and Max. Then there's the AC Pro and the AC. The naming just gets ridiculously convoluted. So I have a Stream Ultra with an AC Pro, and the one that I've ordered is an AC. So it's just a battery with a connection without any of the plug sockets on the top or anything like that. They need to simplify their naming. It's getting ridiculous. But yeah, you can get the Max, as they call it now. So the Stream X Ultra Max. No, I got that wrong. The Stream Ultra X is the bigger one. So again, if you want it all in one. But there is an advantage to having them as separate units, because although in the configuration that I've got them there, I've got them daisy chained together, so they just show up as one big unit. You can separate the AC batteries. So if you, let's say you wanted to have the inverter close, obviously, where your solar panels come in, and then you wanted to have an AC Pro maybe in your kitchen, so you could plug your dishwasher, your washing machine, and things into it there, and take the power directly out of the battery without it having to feed into the mains. You can do that. So you can have these batteries placed around your house, and then you can just draw power directly from them right next to the appliances you need. So it's a more of a distributed system. Obviously, you can't do that if it's all in one big box. I'm sure there are other efficiencies to the bigger box, but that's one of the things that I like about it, is that you can, if you wanted to, you can move these to different parts of the house. Okay, let's have a look. So this is the rest of the comment before that was cut off. Okay, using it for 200 watt space. Yeah, so I mean, it's dead easy. If you're getting an Ultra X, 200 watts base load should take you for about nearly 4 kilowatts. You should be able to run most of the day from that, charge it up at night time, and just run your base load off of it. So I do exactly that. Mine is set up, like I say, it'll come on in 7 minutes, and it'll start supplying 600 watts of base load into the house, and it'll run through till 11:30 at night, and then it'll charge itself back up again. It's really easy to set up. Again, apologies, I haven't got I've got no way to plug my phone into this stream to show you it. I'll try and remember to do that for next time. But on the menu in the app, there is an option at the top here called Energy Flow, and what you might be able to see down at the bottom here is, oops, he says, trying to not get the light to shine on it. There's a timeline, and you just say, at this time I want you to come on, I want you to export this much energy, and at this time I want you to go off. And it's really simple to set up. You don't need any smart meters, you don't need any external devices. It is just programmed into the schedule. Come on, deliver this much energy, go off, deliver nothing. And then there's a separate option. You say at 23:30, which is when my intelligent go comes on, start charging, and then go off at a certain time. Now, there are some features that are not available yet in this that are available in other Ecoflow products. So one of the things I like about the Delta Pros is they have variable charge speeds. So you can say, I want you to charge over this 5 hour period, but only charge at 800 watts, something like that. So again, you don't have to charge them at full tilt all of the time. Apparently it helps with long life of the batteries. Whereas at the moment, the minimum charge rate for the Stream Ultra is 2300 watts. So that's the lowest you can go to. There is an open ticket with Ecoflow to say give us more granular control over the charging, but yeah, you shouldn't have any problems um, delivering 200 watts base load all day long. So Rob, a friend of mine has bought some. Yeah, so this has been the problem with some of these flexible panels. When you flex plastic, anyone that's ever bent bits of plastic over the years, you'll know microfine cracks start to appear in the plastics, and then over the time they'll be the cracks, basically the abrasiveness across the cracks starts to turn the panels milky. And lots of old art, you look at lots of old RVs, you go up on the roof and just with dirt and wind and rain and everything, they're just useless. I've seen some reviews recently of some of the more modern flexible panels that apparently have solved this issue. Now, I don't know if, when I say they're flexible, I don't know if you continually flex them like that. I don't know how long they would last. But for something like a fence or an RV mounted installation, they might be quite good. I didn't even know Ecoflow did them, but I'm actually looking at a couple of different brands and just sort of reading through the reviews at the moment. I've still got to check it out with the chief financial officer as to what I'm allowed to do. Okay. Yeah. So this is the same with a lot of these branded solar panels. They're no better or no worse than any other. Um, I know people in the US, they say buy Renogy panels, but apparently if you go to Harbor Freight, which is a big box store, a bit like sort of B&Q type place, you can get exactly the same panels Harbor Freight branded as Renogy. Same here. Ecoflow panels are just panels that Ecoflow have branded. They're no different. I'd imagine there's a limited number of facilities in the world that make solar panels. Same with TVs. You buy a Sony TV, you get a Sony panel in it. But you buy a Panasonic TV, do you get a Panasonic panel in it? No, you might get a Sony panel in it. So again, number of people that make panels to go in TVs. Actually, probably both of those probably do make their own panels. But you know what I mean. You buy a TV. The brand of the TV doesn't necessarily mean the panel that's inside it. Same with solar panels. They're things. So yeah, City Plumbing in the UK always gets good reviews. People always say they've always got deals on. But yeah, I want to do a bit more research into the flexible panels just to see what comes out. But yeah, I won't be buying Ecoflow panels. They're panels. Don't get me wrong. I've got a couple of 440 watt EcoWatt panels hanging on the fences, and they're almost identical build to the other brand that I've got, which I can't even remember what one is. I wouldn't be surprised if it was exactly the same panel, but I know the Ecoflow ones are twice the price of just buying standard off the shelf ones. Yeah. Let's have a look. Where are we? For comparison, in the coldest house in the UK, we paid £71, including standing charge in October. So, yeah, I mean, we insulated our house. We went a bit over the top, and I'm the only thing that's stopping me putting more insulation in my loft right now is that I actually spent a lot of time boarding the loft out, and I really don't want to have to pull the boards up to slip some more insulation underneath it. So one of the things I learned when I was buying up the insulation for to put into the old people's flats was, when I did mine, it was all that itchy fiberglassy. I don't really know if it is fiberglass in this day and age, but the stuff you only have to look at it and you start itching. And it had this brand that said no itch, so I touched it and within seconds. My hands are all like itching and red, so I don't quite believe in those. But yeah, insulating your house is the cheapest way to bring your energy bills down you can possibly imagine. But still, £71, not too bad. So I'm just going to pull a few of these up because I'm just conscious of the time. There's some, yeah. So Renogy's got quite a good name, especially if you talk to people in the motorhome, RV, caravan space. They're quite well known, and they seem to last quite a long time. But again, I haven't come across anybody who's got the new style flexible panels, or at least people who are saying that they're any good. Bill says, I don't recall entering the drawer. Sorry, Bill, it's too late now. You might want to. Yeah, that's exactly the reason. I don't want to be responsible for putting somebody's email address on the screen and get shouted at. Random. Yeah, so this I can't scroll back because it will have people's email addresses on it. But yeah, so with ChatGPT, whenever you ask it to create things like random numbers, you can ask it to show you the code of how it's doing it. And it was just using the standard rand functions within Python, and literally on the bounce, pick somebody at random, pick another person at random, and it picked the same person. So I'm not convinced whatever it's using is completely random, but again, using the cryptographic seed is a good way to get a truly random number. Seems like there was a whole conversation. Have you seen the random numbers video? Yeah. So do you know what? Of all the channels on YouTube that I go back to time and time again is Tom Scott's videos. I miss Tom Scott. It was one of those, no matter what his video was about, and they were always about something different. They were all brilliant, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone who can take a complex subject and talk about it at the level of depth he could in a 5-minute video. Yeah, and some of his, like the basics of computers, are all really great, and yeah, really do wish he would come back. Let's have a look. Okay. How do you determine the output from your Daikin heat pump? I have to rely upon Daikin for its numbers. So I can measure the energy input of my heat pump using my Shelly EM50 that's in the consumer unit by the side of it. I can't yet measure the output from it. I have to just take Daikin's numbers, which you can get if you go into the MMI, which is the little screen that they put in your house. It's got this really clunky interface, but you can go through go to information, go to energy produced, find the month, and it will tell you what it thinks. But I suspect it's got the same rounding error that the input numbers have got. So I'm not 100% relying upon it right now. One of my reasons for wanting to learn to program, or at least to understand how to use microcontrollers, is I know there's a project out there, an open source project where you can use an ESP32 to monitor your Daikin heat pump. And yeah, I could just go buy the parts offline, but what I'd rather do is figure out how it works first myself. I probably won't, write all the code for it myself. I'll probably just use the open source project for it. But I want to know the details of what it's doing, how it's doing it, what how many measurements it's taking, all of that kind of stuff. So stay tuned for that. I've still got to learn the basics, but that's my ultimate goal, is to be able to measure that myself. Oh, Andy's saying going Home. Yeah, so Home Assistant. If any of you are looking for a winter project and you've not played with Home Assistant is an amazing rabbit hole to go down, because the team behind Home Assistant is just adding so much to it so quickly. Every single month there's always something new to play with, and the number of devices it supports. and you can do some amazing things with it. I've seen some incredible automations that people have built with it. I mean, I'm scratching the surface with it. I mean, so just to give you an example, so some of the automations that I run in my house, and maybe I'll show you some of these if anyone's interested next time. But we have really simple automation. So there's for instance, there's one that says, look at the Octopus integration. When Octopus has a cheap energy period, so for instance, when Intelligent Go starts at 11:30 at night, there's a flag. I think it used to be called Intelligent Dispatching. I think they've changed it in the recent API. But what it does is it flicks that flag and says it is now cheap rate electricity. So then I can trigger off other automation. So when this flag goes to cheap rate, then do this. Really simple, if this then that type language. A lot of it is drag and drop, and it's getting easier to build these kind of automations. We have other really simple automations where, for instance, in my bathrooms, I have a temperature and humidity sensor. And if the temperature and humidity sensor goes above 75%, it turns on the extractor fan. And then if it goes below 75%, it turns off the extractor fan. So again, people who, when you have a shower, you don't need to think about it. I've got to turn the extractor fan on. As soon as you get in the shower and the hot water starts flowing, the extractor fan comes on. Once the levels drop again, it'll turn itself off. There is also a proximity sensor in there. So if people walk into the bathroom and it's after the hours of dark at night time, it'll turn the lights on for you. Again, really, really simple stuff. But by building it all in Home Assistant, it means you don't have to buy into just one ecosystem. So we have Aqara sensors, we have Hue lights. The fan system that we've got isn't even intelligent. It's actually hooked through an Aqara switch. So the automation, because it can't turn the fan on, what it does is it physically toggles the relay in the switch to say turn on, and then it waits until a certain humidity level is reached and simulates pressing the button again, turns it off. So again, really, really simple stuff to do. I love it, but again, I'm only scratching the surface of it. Where has my mouse pointer gone? Oh, that's great. I think my mouse has just died on me. Come on, wake up, you thing. Yep. Yep, it's died on me completely. Oh no. There it is. Okay. God, I'm trying to keep up with you guys. I think you compare your actual consumption in kilowatt hours to an average sized house's heating with. So yeah, whenever I do comparisons, I don't compare my house to anybody else's house, unless if I do, I specifically call it out. I think there's one video where we looked at a small, a medium, and a large house. Although we live in a 3-bedroom house, I classify it as a large house purely because we have 2 electric cars, which draw a lot of power. But yeah, I always, whenever I compare anything, I always compare to like my bills from 1 year ago, because it's the same house, the same people living in it. We're old and stuck in our ways. We don't generally change an awful lot in the way that we live. So that's why I always compare to, like, what was I paying for gas a year ago. But yeah, I don't think there is such thing as an average size house. Certainly modern houses seem to be getting a lot smaller. Yeah, so everyone's saying, they could do it MOT check, but again, they'd have to solve for the problem of how do you get data out of the MOT system into the HMRC systems to be able to raise a bill to bill you for the tax. We all know how fast government IT works. They're not good at it. What do we got here? Yeah, so I mean, talking about the budgets, one of the things that's, well, again, another rumor that's completely unsubstantiated, but one of the rumors is that salary sacrifice schemes are about to get curtailed an awful lot, because all these people that are, getting EVs through salary sacrifice and not paying tax to the simple solution is, as everyone said in the past, start with the billionaires, well, soon to be trillionaires, start taxing them, and then start working your way down the list. And eventually you'll get to people, that have a normal job and pay their taxes and pay their bills on time. So, but that's not going to happen. 2028 was the date suggested to start paper mail thing. Yeah. So again, I don't think the government, because so I actually in a previous job, I used to go along to quite a lot of like government subcommittees, and if you ever have a problem sleeping, you can go to the Houses of Parliament in the evenings. You can sit down, go to the energy subcommittee, and listen to what they're talking about. Trust me, you won't have a problem sleeping much longer. They do not release this kind of information, so there are rules. If you're an MP, and certainly if you're a minister, and definitely if you are the Chancellor of the Exchequer, that you have to, if you're going to release information, it has to be released to Parliament first. So if they were going to release a pay per mile scheme and it found out that they'd leaked it to the press, they'd be in a lot of trouble. The Speaker of the House would have something to say about this. So that's why I think a lot of this is speculation. And if they announce in late 2025 that there is going to be a pay per mile system, why would it be just for EVs? Why not just say, okay, what we'll do is we'll take all the tax off of fuel, we'll put everybody on pay per mile, and that way we don't have to then run two systems. That would make sense to me, but the chances of them having it done by 2028, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. HS2 was supposed to be running 5 years ago, wasn't it? Look what happened there. Don't poke the bear, fully agree. So I've heard for a number of people who've had their smart meters stop working recently, and I don't know how many people know about this, but there's a known issue with every single smart meter that's been put out. So inside the meter, there's got to be some memory in there to store readings, because the data transmission is not, certainly not high bandwidth. So quite often the meter will store sometimes a couple of months worth of data, and then it will trickle it out to the data collection system. Maybe that's over like a 2G network or something like that. The problem with it is these things were built as cheap as they possibly could. The NAND memory that is in them has a limited number of read and write cycles. Just basically any memory chip, whether it's the card that goes in your camera, the memory in your laptop, in your iPhone, or anything like that. They all have a manufacturer's limit of how many times can you read from that memory and how many times can you write to that memory. And once you've exceeded them, it might continue to work for a bit longer, but the likelihood is it's probably dead. When I had my Tesla Model S, this was a massive problem because the memory basically wore out. The memory that they put on the original boards, we far exceeded with all the data collection that the Tesla was doing. It basically overran that life of that memory in about 3 years. Smart meters have this exact same problem, and one of the major things that when they just stop working is the NAND memory inside them basically starts getting corrupted. They run some checks and they can't work. So yeah, I believe the only fix for it is to replace the meter with a new one. But how long it takes, I have no idea. I would be yelling and screaming at them. And if they tried to put me on a standard tariff while they were doing it, we would be having words. Rob, Sir Rob. So it is a Logitech mouse. And just for complete openness, I work for Logitech. So yeah, getting a mouse is not a problem for me. Changing the battery in it probably is an issue. Okay, I am gonna have to call it a night there, I'm afraid. I really do appreciate you guys staying on with me. We overran a little bit, but it was really fun chatting with everybody. I hope you enjoy these. If there's any feedback, if anyone wants me to cover anything, do anything different, then please do let me know. Reach out to me in any of the ways you can. Emails on the channel. If there are things that you think, because one of the things I'm very conscious of is I don't want the channel to just become the same thing month in, month out. Like I say, I've got a few plans for projects, but if there's things you think, hey, it would be cool to see something about that, then do let me know. And yeah, hopefully I will see you all in another video. Oh, that reminds me, coming on Friday, this is a video that some people have asked for a long time. Relatively boring topic, but actually quite important for anybody with heat pumps. So over the last month, I've been testing my entire heating system for Legionella. So we've been doing, I did a control test, a 2-week test and a 4-week test. And I'll have all the results this week, and video should be out on Friday. So if you are concerned about Legionella and what it would take, then Friday's video hopefully will put that topic to bed. With that, I'm going to head off. I'm going to go find the chief financial controller and take her out to dinner. So with that, thanks guys. I'll see you all next time. Take care. Bye bye.